The purpose of this video is to show you how to integrate your evidence into your own writing. Demonstrating this skill will make your paragraph clearer to your reader and make it flow to increase readability. In a moment, I'll show you 3 examples of context and evidence. Remember that context is that little bit of information your reader needs in order to understand how the quote you've chosen fits into the story. It usually includes the speaker if the quote is dialogue, who the speaker is talking to, and what important events occurred before the quote. I'll read the 3 examples. Then pause the video and evaluate them based on which is the clearest and which writing flows the best. Take a moment to rank the examples from the strongest to the weakest. When you're done, continue the video to see the results. A. Jonathan moved out and his brother took his room. His mother wasn't happy about it. You can't just pretend he doesn't exist anymore. B. Jonathan moved out and his brother took his room. You can't just pretend he doesn't exist anymore. C. When Jonathan moves out, his brother, Frank, moves into his room, but his mother tells him, you can't pretend Jonathan doesn't exist anymore. Take a moment to think about which of these is the strongest, which of these is the weakest. Go ahead and pause the video now to complete your rankings. In the 3 examples, C is the strongest, B is the weakest, leaving A in the middle. Here's why. All 3 examples include some context. In this case, the understanding that one brother has moved out and the other moved into his room. B, however, fails to include the speaker of the quote or who the speaker is talking to. As a result, the sentences are fragmented and don't feel connected to each other. And the reader is confused, left wondering who is talking in this moment and why it matters. A is clearer because it implies the mother is doing the speaking, but it still feels fragmented. The first word of the quote is you, and it's not entirely clear who you or who he is. Not only does C define the speaker clearer, but it joins the 2 sentences together so they flow more easily. It also names the brother for clarity and makes it clear who the mother is speaking to. The quote itself is also changed for clarity, changing the pronoun he to Jonathan and putting brackets around the name to indicate the change from the original quote. So let's see how this looks in action. I've decided that in my paragraph I want to showcase Antigone's pride, so I've chosen the following quote as my evidence. Oh, tell everyone. Think how they'll hate you when it all comes out if they learn that you knew about it all the time. The first thing I'll do is cite and punctuate the quote correctly. I put quotation marks around it, and I only need double quotes because the entire quote is dialogue. I don't have to distinguish between dialogue and narration. I will also put slashes to indicate line breaks because I'm quoting from poetry. The last thing I'll do is cite it correctly, including the author's name and the page number and a period outside the parentheses. Now I need to introduce my quote using some context. I need to make it clear who is speaking, who she's speaking to, and in response to what. So I'm going to include the following information in my context. The fact that Antigone has already told Ismene that she intends to bury their brother, that Ismene has objected but promises to keep her intentions a secret, and that this is Antigone talking in reply to her sister. I don't need to provide any additional information or background on the play because I can assume that my reader is familiar with it. They just need a little reminder. So when I think about how all that makes sense in a sentence or two, it might sound something like this. After Antigone makes her intentions known to her sister, Ismene, despite declining the invitation to bury their brother, offers to keep Antigone's actions a secret. So there are all the important parts of my context. That she's already told her sister what she plans to do, Ismene has already declined, and she specifically says that she's going to keep Antigone's actions a secret. This is supposed to help Antigone, but of course that is not how Antigone reacts, and I want to include that in my context. So don't just leave it here, I need to make it clear who's talking. In this case, I could say Antigone says, oh, tell everyone. that would make sense and it would be clear. But I want to make it even more clear that she's angry in her response. So I'm going to say Antigone shouts in reply, and then I'm going to put a comma there because you use a comma whenever you're introducing dialogue like this. So before I finish, I'm going to read it out loud to make sure it makes sense. After Antigone makes her intentions known to her sister, Ismene, despite declining the invitation to bury their brother, offers to keep Antigone's actions a secret. Antigone shouts in reply, "Oh, tell it, tell everyone. Think how they'll hate you when it all comes out, if they learn that you knew about it all the time." I'm making sure they flow, I'm making sure they're clear, and then when I'm ready, I move on to my analysis. Now, practice this on your own with the evidence you've chosen for your lit analysis paragraph. You can refer back to this video if you need to.